pakanga,
se pakanga,
mote oranga,
mote oranga,
tihe mauri ora,
tihe mauri ora,
se pakanga,
se pakanga.
We're in the middle of a climate emergency, and we are still lending money to fossil fuel industry.
Somehow, although I would like to believe it, I seriously doubt they are booing at themselves, because taking over banks, blocking streets, getting people who are not involved in your cause to be distracted, detracted, and putting an exact obstacle in the way of said person being able to get on with their daily lives is not exactly a good way of sending out your message or getting people to join your cause. However, Extinction Rebellion. Hello, welcome one and all wherever you may be. It is I, Reynard C. Fox, and today we're going to be discussing the recent spat of new protests and climate change called Extinction Rebellion. This new religious, what some are calling death cult, related to climate change and the belief that our race is going to soon be extinct if we do not get up off of our asses, get away from our TVs, and start doing something. Or start doing something at our TVs, which is what I'm doing. That doesn't sound very reassuring. We're going to be looking at an article or two today. As you saw from the video, this is more along the lines of the points I'm going to be making. I heard this was called a peaceful protest earlier today on the BBC, but this is going to be one of my more one of the more precise criticisms I have on this movement, given the actions that these people going out in the streets protesting have already taken. And we'll get to that in a moment. Before we begin, I seem to have forgotten something. There was a big change recently. I just can't put my finger on it. Did I get verified? No, I didn't get verified. God, what is it? It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, maybe we'll get back. No, wait. Nope, I didn't get verified. Sorry. My fanciful dreaming, if I may say so myself. What was it? Wait. No, we'll get back to it later, folks. We'll get back to it later. As some big change happened recently. I can't remember, but we'll get back to it later. So, from an article from The Guardian yesterday, Extinction Rebellion has won the first battle. Now it must win the war, by Leo Barassi. I believe that's how it should be pronounced. I don't know. What battle is it exactly that they're talking about winning? We'll find out in a minute, I guess. And what war, also, apparently. I'm not sure. I didn't know this was a cosmic battle of the gods, like Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever stupid comic book movie they're coming out with next that is cosmic beings fighting to the end times. So for those who are unaware, if you've not caught it from the first video that I showed at the beginning before the title entrance to the article that I'm reading, Extinction Rebellion is the next spat of protests that are going on right now that are going to occur from starting yesterday for the next 2 weeks, if not longer. Who knows how heated this is going to get, but it's worldwide, and it is involving protesters causing public nuisances and public disruptions by taking over intersections, banks, as you saw, public institutions, wherever that they can cause enough of a hiccup in people's day-to-day activities that people actually are, obligated, mandated, I guess, required by them to stop and take notice. So let's read. Extinction Rebellion seems to have cracked, using protests to transform public debate. But as it starts another major rebellion this week, it might find the challenges ahead is even greater. Extinction Rebellion's April protests were an enormous success. So I guess this is something that has gone on, flew under the radar for me and over my head. as of last spring. But anyways, together with the BBC's Attenborough documentary and the school climate strikes, they created a surge in public concern about the environment. The climate emergency is now established in the top 5 most important issues facing the UK today, at around the same level as the economy. Wow. If only the economy was the actual, the actual mantelpiece of the top 5 most important issues, and this took a back seat somewhere in the top 10 or further behind, because the economy, both in Britain and the US, seems to be a more pressing issue. Since the April protests, the government has legislated for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and Labour is moving towards a much more ambitious target. Few people could have predicted that a 2-week blockade of central London would be met with so much support or have such political impact. Really, support. By who exactly? Political impact, I believe. I believe people are going to take one side or the other in either defending this nuisance or supporting against it. But support, I am not so sure what they mean by that, unless they mean the worldwide disruption that they're causing in different cities and metropolitan areas around the world. Let's see. So the natural question is whether a new round of protests can repeat the success. Survey says no. Let's look at Occupy. Let's look at other protests, not including the civil rights movement, that actually did have a large impact that carried and resounded for generations to come. But let's look at Occupy in particular. That's a protest that petered out and eventually just involved the areas where the protests were occurring were just hobo camps set up and people squatting and holding signs, and eventually it petered out and died. The fact this month's rebellion won't be such a novelty could make things harder. It's the difficult second album problem. Repeat your material and you're boring. Innovate and you may lose the magic. And with the police preparing to move faster against protesters this time, thank God, it's inevitable that opponents of climate action will call for tougher law enforcement. Opponents, not against climate action, but opponents of people disrupting day-to-day life for regular people who are not taking part of these protests. That's what they're calling for. It's not against climate change. It's not against climate change action. It's against the people in this cult who are laying down on the sidewalks, as you'll probably see in a picture that I've included. And as you've seen in the video, I'll leave a link in the description. But people causing disruption in people's day-to-day lives who are going to work, possibly needing to go to the doctor, going to see their loved ones, what have you. This is what they're against. But difficult though it will be for the protests to recapture the novelty and public support of the April protests, that is far from the biggest problem. Ironically, the greatest threat to the movement is its apparent success over the past 6 months. If the public believe the protesters have already won, continued street blockades could look unnecessary. Well, if they've won over the public, and if it convinces them they're already won, why are the protests necessary? Why are you still doing this? Moving on. It's here that public opinion turns from being helpful to being a problem for Extinction Rebellion. The overwhelming majority want action to limit climate change and support a net zero target. Most even support bringing the target forward from the government's current date. But most people's attention stops here. Few people pay attention to the details or punish politicians who don't have a plan. Why would you punish them if they don't have a plan? That just seems to hinder the politicians being able to come up with one. What, are you talking about politicians who are refusing to come up with a plan, or ones who just haven't come up with an idea yet? Why don't we punish scientists too who haven't come up with an answer to climate change? Huh? How about that? Or would that not hinder the scientists? That just sounds like that sounds like a negative connotation if there ever was one. Anyways, this means there's not much incentive for politicians to go beyond simply pledging to tackle the climate crisis with ambitious-sounding targets. Yeah, no, there's not incentives for them if they're looking at punishment if they don't come up with an answer. Take the government's net zero law. It would just about make the UK compliant with the Paris Agreement's goal of avoiding dangerous warming, although it is too slow for that if you consider the UK to have a responsibility to clean up faster than less affluent countries. But the government wasn't even on course to meet its old weaker target. We are nowhere near meeting the new one. And what of their responsibilities to clean up other countries? What about China and what about India? Why do they not have? I don't understand. Are these protests occurring in China right now, mainland, or in Hong Kong? No, I don't think so. I think in Hong Kong they have bigger fish to fry. I think they're literally fighting for, their independence and to retain their sovereignty, which If they lose that, then Hong Kong won't be able to continue protests like this if they wish to do so, because China, being the biggest problem, doesn't care about the climate change issue. They don't care whether it's an issue or not. They're not even going to address it. And they're the biggest contributor next to India. Like, why aren't these countries being held to account on their own and being made to take responsibility? And why aren't these protesters seen, and why aren't they promoting that in their protests? They just want to, like, take over other first world metropolitan areas and cause blockades and disturbances because they don't want to do the hard material like China and India. They want to take the easy route, and you know, they're probably even, I wouldn't be surprised if most of them are fully aware that China and India are the biggest contributors. They just know there's nothing they can do about that. So they just want to take the easy route of protesting, which is causing not even peaceful protesting as far as I'm concerned. If you're causing a public disturbance and a public nuisance and impacting people's daily lives with your protests, I don't consider that peaceful protesting. That is disruptive, and a public nuisance, and it is not peaceful in that regard. So we're going to skip over this paragraph, this next paragraph, and move on. So apparent allies of the protesters can actually be a threat to faster climate action. Emission-cutting pledges can be useful, but if they aren't combined with a plan, they can undermine the cause by making it seem like the battle has been won. The next wave of Extinction Rebellion protests will be a success if it forces climate-friendly politicians to show their proposals. When a politician says they will stop climate crisis from escalating, the first question that needs to be asked is how? Good question. How? So, like, we haven't gotten that answer yet, so why are you pushing politicians to come up with an answer that they don't already have, or like a pledge that they can't even fulfill because they don't have the answer? You're just wanting lip service paid to you. That's all you want. Answering that question requires politicians to expose the fact that avoiding dangerous warming will be disruptive and difficult. Many people will look for reasons to find a way out, and so the debate may return to why. But this is Extinction Rebellion's specialist subject. Its explanation of the climate emergency may be terrifying, but is well evidenced. I would like to see sources cited when that is said, and some kind of evidence or links added into these articles that show the evidence. And I would also like to, at the same time, in good faith, to be shown the evidence opposing their premises on climate change being dangerous to humanity and disruptive, and this whole, like, 12 years from now it's going to be irreversible damage. This challenge to force apparently green politicians to come with a plan is daunting, but few people would have imagined that a climate change protest could occupy central London and be met with widespread public backing. I don't think it's being met with widespread public backing. I would like to see the people videos surfacing, if anybody could find them, to show me videos of people out there who are shouting against these protesters or trying to get around these protesters. They may not be Antifa, but they're still causing the same disturbance and the same disruption that Antifa would cause. Blocking roads, blocking intersections, this new style of protesting, which, while it may not be violent in this regard yet, it could turn into that with this kind of attitude and this behavior, that we have to block people's traffic and block people's daily lives and disrupt them in order for us to be heard. That is not how protests are done. That is not how peaceful protests are done. And this is the end of the article as we've come to it, and this is the point I wanted to make, more so than these articles that are just skirting around the fact that people are causing public disturbances. It doesn't address that that's what people are doing, and I seriously don't think that, unlike this article is stating, that it has widespread public backing. It has widespread backing from the people within the group, but I think people, the majority of people who are getting on with their daily lives, are not backing this. They're probably angry, disincentivized to even be wanting to back this movement, because they're not listening to the common people who are just trying to get on with their daily lives when they say, hey, get out of the way of this intersection so I can get to work. Like, that's the big issue I'm seeing right here, is that this Extinction Rebellion is causing nothing more than a public disturbance and a nuisance that needs to be met with police intervention and more arrests. Like, I saw in an article yesterday, or I think on the BBC, that 130 arrests had already been made within the UK, and so many arrests being in New Zealand. That's what we need to be seeing to answer this, because this is not being publicly backed. This is being backed by those within the group, and the media here is skirting around that issue and just focusing on the politics of this movement and how politicians need to be more involved. They're basically saying politicians need to have an answer, so this movement isn't needing to take place with these protests. That's what this article is getting at, and that is not the answer. People need to stop protesting in such a way and causing a disturbance to people and their daily lives. So that was today's video. Rather short and sweet, or sour, depending on how you look at it. Did you think highly of it? Please like, comment, and subscribe, and as have you no doubt noticed, there has been a change. The video quality is better and the sound, as I am no longer making these videos on my phone, but from an actual computer. That being said, my next announcement is that I'm going to soon be announcing in one of the next coming videos that I have a Patreon and or Subscribestar account set up for those to donate to. I wish to keep making better quality videos and more content on a daily basis for you folks, and I'm hoping to get more community involvement from the YouTube platform and soon to be making more content on a regular basis. With that being said, monetization is no doubt an obstacle, and it's something that will probably not be happening for a long time down the road, if at all, depending on, the fact that my content is not exactly something YouTube may want to monetize. That being said, those who watch and subscribe, the more people I gather into the folds of my YouTube channel, I hope to be like them to be liking my content enough that they will want to donate. So be on the lookout for my next videos and a coming announcement that I have a Patreon and Subscribestar set up, so we can get that going. This has been Reynard C. Fox, and as I've said in Latin before, I will say it in English this time because I don't wish to try and memorize the Latin line again. Never give an inch, never give up. Thank you very much, and have a great night.